I'm Bama Hager, and I am the parent of an 18-year-old son who has autism, and I work at the Autism Society of Alabama as the program director. Henley was diagnosed at 2.5 and is a junior in high school now. He has a AAA diploma, so he will stay in school until he's 21 and work on some transition job training skills so that he can move into a job after he leaves the school system at 21 years old. The way that the IEP is the most helpful for him is to provide a structure for his school year, and it's very helpful for me to see the goals in each area of academics and to see the goals that the speech therapy program at his school might have and the goals that the occupational therapy program at his schools might have. At the same time, for my son, I haven't had a lot of behavioral intervention goals, but when those have been needed, it's a nice time once a year to have those set out so that I know what happens in the classroom, if there's any disruptive behaviors that he may display, and at the same time, he'll know what might happen if he is oppositional, or if he's loud in the classroom, or if he's presenting challenges in a behavioral way. Both of us know what the plan will be from the school's perspective, and that way we're all on the same page going into the school year. Henley's biggest success for his goals and objectives for the IEP over the years, probably the largest success that I noticed was moving from being a non-reader to a reader, because once a child with autism, in my opinion, can get to the point where he's a reader, then he can, follow written instructions in addition to verbal instructions. So that was a big year for us during early elementary school, because after that time, his teachers could use a written list of instructions in addition to the teacher's verbal instructions. It really helped him stay on task. It helped him understand in his schedule exactly what was coming next. He does great with picture symbols too, so we were doing fine before he was a reader, but once we got to the point where he was reading pretty functionally, that made a huge change in his academics and in his day-to-day functioning in the school environment. So an IEP team can be anybody that the parent or the school thinks might be helpful in the educational planning process. For my team, I just try to think through the people that will come in contact with me from the school, or will come in contact with my son, with Henley, from the school. So I try to be particularly inclusive, and I like to have the speech therapists in the room, the occupational therapists, anybody who might be working on social skills or might be working on behavior at the school, the case manager or special education teacher, and typically an IEP team will have a regular education teacher, even if the child is in the resource room a great deal. Usually that regular ed teacher can be really helpful to talk about those aspects of the school day that are in regular education classes. I think that an administrator should be included, so just a kind of somebody in school leadership, just to have kind of that overall aspect of what might be helpful from the school in general or from the school system. And the special education coordinator for the system might be present at the meeting, and could be somebody that a parent can invite. They may not be able to attend every IEP in a school system, but they might be able to give some feedback on the IEP beforehand, or they might be able to be at the meeting. Particular challenges that I've experienced, I haven't had too difficult of a time in my IEP meetings. I've had a pretty good experience, and the tactic that worked for me from preschool through the 12th grade IEP was to think ahead of time of what might be difficult parts of the education planning. So if there's something that I was going to request that might be a little challenging for the school to provide, I would go ahead and tell the special ed teacher or the case manager about that request so that the team can go ahead and discuss it, and they're not shocked. I'm not shocked if they're going to say, that might be a difficult thing to meet your request. We can go ahead and have that dialogue started before we get into the meeting. I think if parents, try to go ahead and share some of their ideas and their requests before the actual meeting, it's a really great idea. And then the team's not surprised, and things don't have to be difficult or contentious. Usually if things are brought up beforehand, they can be discussed a little bit before you even get into the actual IEP meeting. That's worked for me over the years. As a parent, if other parents ask me, what's been the most helpful with IEPs over the years, one thing that I always do before I go to my IEP meeting is there's a website called rightslaw.com, and there's a gentleman, Pete Wright, who maintains this website, and it's his last name, so it's WRIGHT, and his website is rightslaw.com. That even after 15 IEPs, I will visit that website right before my IEP because it gets me in a good place where it reviews my rights as a parent, my child's rights as a child who has a disability in the state of Alabama, and it gets me just kind of ready for the IEP meeting. So that's one thing that I always share with parents that ask me that question. In addition, something that I did, and I know a lot of people do in my area with me, is that I found a parent who was a little bit ahead of me in my school system who had a child that was a little bit similar to Henley. So there was a parent, just a few years ahead who was at my elementary school, and as soon as I entered the preschool program, and especially once I entered into kindergarten and early elementary, I just reached out to that parent and just said, what are the things at my school that have been super helpful? And I know that parents that have kids a little younger than my son will often reach out to me and ask me the same question. The last thing that I say to parents often is that in our state, a lot of people don't know that there is an Alabama Disability Advocacy Program, a program in our state that's ADAP is the acronym. And it's a group that just looks out for families and for people that are affected by disabilities and makes sure that they're being treated appropriately by our state government, our state agencies, and our education system. So I always share that with parents that if things get a little questionable or really, really, really confusing, that ADAP, Alabama Disability Advocacy Program, in the state of Alabama can be a nice resource just to touch base with them and say, this feels wrong, or it feels like I'm being a little mistreated here, or my child's being a little mistreated. Could you help me understand what might be happening from the school system's perspective? And they really are a fabulous resource.